It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games.
DJ PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We're joined now by Chris Karpman, Sun Devil Source, 24/7 Sports. Chris, good morning.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
We're doing well. Thanks for joining us for a spring football tour. We're trying to get Ute and Cougar fans, get them up to speed on the competition. And I think ASU is on the brink of being perennial competition. They put together 2 good years, one great year, but 1 good year. And I'm intrigued by the way the program is changing. I mean, times are changing, the rules are changing. But I was reading this summary of where the Devils stand after spring, and there's this line. Basically, the writer is saying. Dillingham has said that to move big, strong people, you need to have bigger, stronger people, and that the size difference this year appears obvious on the offensive line. We listen to Kyle Whittingham forever, and Kalani Sitake worked for him, so he thinks the same way. When the O-line, when the D-line, everything else gets a lot more clear, gets a lot simpler. I've always felt like Arizona State had great skill players, but the O-line, maybe. Depends on the year. What do you think about this O-line?
Yeah, if you really zoom out even more than that, Kenny Dillingham has talked for years about Kyle Whittingham's Utah program being his North Star. When he arrived at ASU, he said the discipline, the structure, the physicality, the ability to wear on your opponents at the line of scrimmage, that was what he was pursuing. That was what he was orienting his program to try to be. So They lost Maxi Hanachor, who was a first-round NFL draft pick at right tackle, and they also lost a few other guys that were starters or part-time starters. And even with that, their offensive line looks like it hasn't lost a beat. They added Tana Alo-Tupuola from Georgia Tech. He was a starter last year as a sophomore. Remember Haynes King. They had one of the best rushing attacks in the country. And Tana Alo-Tupuola was a really big factor in that. He reminds me a lot, in fact, of Lee Faltanu, who was ASU starting center 2 years ago in the Big 12 championship season. So that's a big development. Makai Stewart was a starter last year in the second half of the season at right guard as a true freshman, and he's one of the best-looking guard prospects that I've seen at ASU in recent decades. Like, he's an NFL guy, still young, but massive. He's like 350 or close to that pounds and 6'5", very physical, heavy hands. They have at tackle 2 guys returning who started in the Sun Bowl against Duke in Jalen Clem and Chance Westbrooks, both of whom are in a reasonably decent chance to be able to start this year. So the size and physicality really at both sides of the line of scrimmage and throughout the whole team, including in their secondary, getting longer and more athletic, it definitely noticeable this spring that continues to uptick.
We know they lost Sam Levitt to the big money of LSU, Raleek Brown to the big money of Texas, and Jordan Tyson to the big money of the NFL. Now, I know that they brought in a number of transfer receivers, including a kid from Colorado like Jordan Tyson, so they're extremely high on him and a couple other guys. Quarterbacks, they brought in the kid used to be at Fresno, the kid used to be at Kentucky, started, a New Mexico kid, they have a high school kid, and then the kid from El Paso. So they got a number of kids to choose from. And then I think at running back, they got Brown, the other Brown, Kyson, I think his first name is, back. He had an injury-plagued season. So could you just evaluate those 3 positions? Because those are 3 high-profile guys that they lost.
Yeah, exactly. Wide receiver looks to be in very good shape. Omarion Miller is a Colorado transfer. Jordan Tyson had transferred from Colorado also. Reed Harris transferred from Boston College. He's 6'5", 220, tremendous catch radius, had a very productive spring. He's different than guys at ASU's typically had. And then Raiden Vinesbright had 20-something catches last year as a true freshman at Washington. He's originally from Tempe. So that was arguably the top transfer trio wide receivers of any team in the country. Like Miller and Harris were both ranked in the top 5. So that's going to help ASU try to get past the loss of Jordan Tyson. And nobody's going to be as good as Tyson, but I think collectively they might actually end up being as good or better because they also returned Jalen Moss, who had a really big game in the Sun Bowl, and Jaron Hamilton, who's a big play guy, and Derek Eusebio, who's a good slot receiver. At running back, you nailed it. Like Raleek Brown, he cost like a lot of money, like probably more than what the rest of ASU's running backs combined cost between revenue share and NIL. And yet the group still looks very good. Kyson Brown got hurt, as you said, against Mississippi State. He had been the starter ahead of Raleek Brown at the beginning of last year before the injury. And he had a good spring. ASU added a kid named Marquise Gillis that I think people are going to come to learn a lot about. He ran for 1,100 yards last year at Delaware State, playing for Clinton Portis and Deshaun Jackson, and looked very good in the second part of spring. He's 225 to 230 pounds, but still a good athlete, runs well. He's a hard dude to tackle. And they have Jason Brown, who had 130 rushing yards against Duke in the Sun Bowl. So they're, I think, going to be in good shape at running back, even with that loss. Quarterback, I think, is the most important position to evaluate on the team. Cutter Boley started as a redshirt freshman last year at Kentucky. Difficult schedule, super tough in the SEC, a little bit turnover prone. I think he had 10 interceptions and lost a few fumbles. So that's going to have to be managed. But he did a very good job in the second half of spring of avoiding any jeopardy throws in scrimmages that we saw, and looked like he's able to get the ball quickly to facilitate the offense, and he has the ability to get the ball down the field. He's 6'5", 220, big kid. So I think he's going to be the starter. I would say 80% likely that he's going to be the starter. Mikey Keene's a very good backup. He had started at Fresno State and UCF, and they have a freshman, Jake Fetty, from El Paso, who looks like a future star. He's actually quite similar to Sam Levitt in terms of his physical attributes, and his sort of talent level really, really pops. He's probably the second best looking true freshman that I've seen in spring ball in recent decades after Jaden Daniels.
We can talk about offense all we want, and I grew up watching Eric Coryell and the Chargers, so I can talk about offense all day long. But Texas Tech and BYU rode two really good defenses to the Big 12 title game. ASU was third against the rush. They were 13th against the pass. What has been done to upgrade the pass defense?
Yeah, they added a lot of experience and length. Free safety was a problem to some degree last year after Xavier Alford had a back injury that didn't allow him to play almost at all. And to try to improve that position, they added Lyric Rawls, who led Kansas in unassisted tackles last season. He's a senior veteran presence. He started at multiple Big 12 schools. I think he's come in and he immediately became a team captain, which is tough to do. So I think that's going to shore up that position. They added Ashton Stamps, corner from LSU. He was a 2-year starter, and then last year he was their number 3 corner, which at LSU is really nothing to slouch at. He was, I think, second in the SEC in 2024 in pass breakups. So with Keith Abney going to the draft, Javen Robinson going to Wisconsin, he's a really important player. They also have Rodney Bimage, who I think he's a sophomore. He's been one of their most talented young players on the roster, and I think he's kind of ready to step into a much bigger role and probably start. They added a few other transfer corners. The big thing is a lot more length. All these guys are over 6 foot, and they're longer bodied. Brian Ward, ASU's defensive coordinator, loves to play a lot of cover 3 zone, and he wanted to get guys that have more opportunity to get their hands in passing lanes and on the football. And then I think that they have a few other safeties that are very intriguing. Boogie Wilson, who started in place of Alford at free safety, will probably move down to play nickel. And Montana Warren's a team captain who's a very physical player. He's been a top backup in recent years, and he's got a very good chance now going into his junior season to play the strong safety position. Overall, I think that's kind of where they need to really show up, because I feel like their front 6 is in very good shape going into this year.
If the world were like a Sleep Number mattress, everything would adapt for your comfort. Because as your life changes and your body changes, Sleep Number mattresses adapt and shift to give you personalized comfort night after night. And now everything's on sale during our Memorial Day event. Save up to $1,200 on mattresses, plus free delivery when you add a base. Ends Monday. To experience a whole new world of comfort, visit a Sleep Number store or go to sleepnumber.com. Sleep Number, to a good life sleep.
For a while there, they couldn't kick a field goal to save their lives. Last year, their punting team sucked. And so I know they had the one kicker was a senior. So tell us the status of their place kicking and their punting.
Yeah, you correctly said that. They were the worst punting team that I've ever seen. I think they were second worst nationally in net punting average. So it was awful. And Dillingham was extremely candid about his frustrations about that, and he has been the last couple of years. Their starting punter last year had a quad injury, and he was sort of like playing at maybe 80% for a lot of the year when he was able to play. But even when he was 100%, there were consistency issues, and especially with his field flipping and pin punting. And so they added Nick McClarty from Ohio State. He's an Australian. He was the backup early in his career at Ohio State. Huge leg. He's 6'7", 255 pounds.
Ooh.
And there were, I'm not exaggerating, there were like times when he hit 80+ yard punts. His consistency when they get into 11-on-11 settings in terms of how quickly he's able to go through the mechanics and get the football off, that's not as dialed in as you would want it to be. But I think he's making progress, and he has a chance to really upgrade that position.
Okay, well, I'm not going to go to the fridge for more food when ASU's punting then, because either he completely flips the field and it pins the other team and the defense. What an advantage for them, right? Or he gets it blocked and it's a score the other way. So I got to watch. I got to watch when ASU punts.
Yeah, no, it's true. When you're not worried about people coming at you, you can uncork pretty big ones consistently, and he did. But then, when you get the 11 guys out there,
it's
different. It was a little bit more inconsistent. Yeah,
it's different. Absolutely. Yeah, I back in the day I had some personal experience with that. I can attest that's all true. There's horrific stories. Horrific. Yeah. On the whole, do people feel good enough about the direction of this program that they're going to invest in it? Because I think what we're seeing in college football now is the teams that are winning, I don't know how they do it, but somehow they get out, they find people with money, and they give. And when the team is struggling, there's a little doubt, people hold back their money. Sometimes they even say, well, I'm going to hold it back for 1 year because this coach is going to be gone. These are stories we're hearing out of Baylor, that there's money trees they can't shake because people don't completely buy into Aranda. So where does that sit? Because we know money's been a big issue with ASU.
Yeah, it's better than it's been at any point in this modern era that we're in right now. In fact, a booster named Brian Sweetie, who had been a senior executive at several major companies, including eBay and Pepsi, he's committed $10 million in an endowment that's going to be in Kenny Dillingham's name that ASU is going to be able to utilize how it wants. And then there was also around a $10 million donation that's part of a naming rights gift that's going to be on ASU's new indoor practice facility, which they're going to break ground on here in the next few months. They sold out every game last year, and I think that there's more of an ability for Dillingham to connect with boosters than his predecessors by far. So I think that there's been a pretty marked uptick in terms of the amount of support. ASU had the top 15 to 20 transfer portal class in the country, which, as you guys know, that's not possible unless you have a little bit more money to throw around to some of those transfers. I don't think ASU is quite to the level of BYU probably at this point in terms of how flush it is with cash for its roster. And certainly not close to Texas Tech, but I would put ASU in the tier that would be below those teams, like among the other best teams in the Big 12. And I think that the roster is reflecting that.
Yeah, I think you did a podcast with that Sweetie, if I remember correctly, and I listened to it. It made me a little nervous. I know that he did a few podcasts, but when he started talking about how the offense needs to be a little more creative, that made me a little uncomfortable right there because, okay, donate your money, but don't tell me how to run a football team in a program.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. The backstory on that, though, is he has a very good relationship with Kenny Dillingham, like personal relationship. In fact, he is hosting ASU staff and some other people at his home for a party in next weekend. And so there's no, and another aspect about Dillingham is he's extremely self-critical and very much willing to listen to people's perspectives, to challenge his way of thinking. So I think that Brian Sweetie kind of goes in that mode. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that coaches really want to hear from boosters about their football opinions. Generally, I get that. I think in this particular case, though, it's given their relationship, as I understand it, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
That is hilarious, though. I like that. Although if they have that kind of relationship, he might be quoting Kenny. He might literally be quoting him. Like Kenny's like, I want to open it up, but you got to have the right guys before you open it up. So there might be that kind of conversation. Who knows?
Yeah, it's funny. During spring ball, Kenny ran over to Jalen Strong, former ASU star wide receiver, who I was talking to at the time, and he said, some words to that effect, basically, about certain types of throws and routes and whatever. I don't want to give away too much, but because it was a private thing. But I think that there's some truth to what you just said.
Yeah.
The recruiting news this week was big with the Hildebrand kid. One of the Chandler schools. I can't remember which one. He's the number one player in the state for what it's worth. And that's the first time since Nikhil Harry. Now, Nikhil Harry, I believe, was raised by his grandmother over there in the East Valley and wanted to stay local. I listened to Hildebrand. He's talking about his grandfather wants to see him play, served in multiple U.S. wars and all that stuff. So a very patriotic man there. I'm wondering, is that a circumstantial thing or more of a kind of sign of the times that finally there's a breakthrough with the Sun Devils being able to recruit some of the better players locally?
Yeah, you guys do a very good job of digging in the crates to find all of the really important things that are going on. I'm impressed. I would say it's a combination of both. His family, his grandfather has ASU season tickets. He talked to him for a while the other day. He has been going to ASU football games since 1961, and Jake Hildebrand's family is extremely close-knit and very grounded, and I think that the ability to have that support system be close to him for college was very important to him, and his dad, I think it mattered a lot to him, who's been extremely involved in his athletics career to this point, and Jake grew up going to ASU football games, and it mattered a lot. But then also he said to me, look, Maxi Honitor didn't even play high school football, and 4 years later he's getting drafted in the first round, and that's not possible without the development of ASU's offensive line coach, Sanga Tuitele, who's done a very good job and turned down USC and some other big jobs. He's as good as any offensive line coach that I've seen at ASU when you're factoring in the evaluations, the recruiting, the development piece, schematics. So I think, there's there's a little more interest in ASU locally. It's still very tough to get the top players, especially when a lot of them are being offered more money to go elsewhere. But the way that the local recruits perceive the Sun Devils has definitely changed under Dillingham's tenure.
Well, forget that old cliche, recruit the mom, recruit the grandparents. That seems to be paying off.
Yeah. I mean, when you can. That's
right, yeah, when you
idea.
can, sure. Yeah. All right, well, Chris, we appreciate one last thing before I let you go. PK is an ASU grad, so that's part of the reason. It's a big part of the reason we're so dialed in on the program. And one of his theories, and I'll ask this so it doesn't sound as bad as when it comes out of his mouth. One of his theories, though, is both Arizona and ASU have had problems keeping local guys home. Both of them have had big years but have had problems sustaining it. But there's actually, maybe there's an opportunity here. Do you think there's a chance that Arizona can follow up what they did last year and ASU can follow up what they did the last 2 years? That would be kind of a high watermark for the two programs together.
Yeah, I haven't studied Arizona's roster departures and arrivals quite as well. I think that they probably are not going to take a big step back, if it is at all. I think ASU looks definitely like a bowl team. It's hard to really compare that to what other Big 12 teams look like right now because we're in this world in which the transfer portal changes so much. But look, Dillingham is really good. I can't stress enough. Like I've gotten to know these coaches personally. The last 5 ASU football coaches, he's superior. Like he's easily more impressive when you actually get into the weeds on issues and you talk about things at any level of depth. I think he's competitive, hungry. He could have gone to Michigan. I don't know how clearly that's been really reported, but Michigan aggressively courted Kenny Dillingham before hiring Kyle Whittingham. Not saying that he's a better coach than Kyle Whittingham by any stretch, but he is a lot younger and of the same ilk in a lot of ways. And Dillingham decided to stay, and he did that because of the support that he feels like is in place at ASU and the opportunity that they have in the Big 12. So I don't really see ASU taking any sort of a big dip to the backward, even after losing so many starters.
Chris, we'll leave it right there. We appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. That was a great conversation.
Thanks, guys.
Chris Karpman, Sun Devil Source, 24/7 Sports. You know, the thing you got going for you, PK, if you take off your media hat and just put on your one of your 47 ASU caps, is that I do think there's a chance, especially with a quarterback coming back at Arizona, there's a chance here Arizona and Arizona State could both be good again. But where you've got the upper hand is you got a guy with local ties. I totally buy the Michigan stuff, and I buy it for exactly the reason Chris just said. Why would you get Kyle if you could get a similar version of Kyle who's 20 years younger? And let's face it, the biggest difference between the two, Kyle's probably better at putting defenses together, and by probably, I mean he is. But when it comes to grooming a quarterback and transforming a guy who's got some talent but he's not quite on point, you'd obviously go to ASU, right?
Yeah.
He's got the track record.
For sure.
And with the importance of quarterback and the fact that you got somebody who's a generation younger, of course he'd be the first guy you'd go to. But if you're looking for a certain specific type of coach, you wouldn't go to 5 guys before you got to those 2. I mean, there's probably somebody else out there I'm not thinking of off the top of my head right now. But why would they not be 2 of the top 3 or 4 coaches you speak to? They're exactly what Michigan needed. And the younger guy is busy handing food over the fence, so he doesn't take the job. And the older guy is like, oh, I just got a $13 million buyout to go away. Yeah, let's do it. So I totally get why it played out. Arizona may not be able to hold their guy, though. He didn't have the local tie.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. He does have a little bit of a tie to Tucson. But I think we need to note that I think that Kyle wasn't necessarily Michigan's second choice because I don't think he was officially available when they were interviewing or pursuing Dillingham. Yeah. It came after the fact. He resigned after Dillingham, if I have my timeline right, after he said no.
Yeah.
So he wasn't, it's like, well, we chose this guy, but he didn't choose us. So we went to our second pick.
Yeah.
I think Kyle
literally
hadn't
wasn't
made a decision. Yeah. They basically, Utah hadn't told him, we don't want you here.
Right.
Yet.
All right, DJ and PK, when we come back, the headlines. What you missed in this show. Next, stay with us.
Summer is all about freedom, fun, and growing up. And between the ages of 9 and 13, kids are starting to form their views about alcohol. With more independence, their still developing brains need more guidance and support than ever. That's why summer is the perfect time to stay connected and plan fun, safe family activities together. Research shows kids who spend quality time with their parents doing what they enjoy are less likely to drink underage. And when kids feel close to you, they're more likely to listen, especially when you set clear expectations. In fact, kids who drink before 15 are far more likely to struggle with alcohol later. This summer, create a no-bummer summer with fun, alcohol-free activities for your kids. Go to summer.parentsempowered.org to take a quick quiz and discover ideas tailored to your family. A little time together can make a big difference. For more information and to learn more about how to prevent underage drinking, visit parentsempowered.org.